April 1st, 2020. So due today, April 1st at midnight, is in lab assignment 7. That's the one that we started last week with some examples, and it is due Wednesday at midnight. So an outline for today, lab 11, we're going to go over in lab 7, diagramming and interpreting the interactions, again what we started last week. Secondly, we'll go over proposal assignment number 4, which is a presentation. We'll go over how to develop and graph your hypotheses, and finally we'll end with proposal assignment number 5. So in lab 7, the answer key is posted under the assignment sheets module on Canvas. You can check your answers, and each question is worth 2 points, but just know you can check your answers. I don't know if everybody is aware of this new modules that I have on Canvas, so I'm just going to show you. So on Canvas, if you go to modules, just loading here, on the very bottom of this modules page, there's an assignment sheets tab. That's where I'm uploading all of your assignment sheets, if you didn't know. So everything is there. So here's the in lab 7 key. Okay, back to this. So proposal assignment 3 that you turned in last week. Grades will be posted at some point this week. After you get your grades, feel free to ask me about them and your deductions, but please read and digest the grade and the feedback before you come to me with any questions. Okay, so let's talk about fitting your articles to your paper topic. So this is going back to your articles and to the eventual assignment that's due at the end of the semester. So you're going to want to make sure that you have support for including all 3 variables used in your paper. So basically you need to justify why these 3 variables belong in a study together. So an example sentence would be, in the past, gender has been an important factor in job decisions demonstrated by Article 1 and Article 2. This is basically just telling us why you chose the 3 variables that you did and if there's support for those 3 variables. Secondly, you're going to want to make sure your articles address all 3 variables. So not every article needs to address all 3, but together all 3 variables need to be addressed. So each conceptual variable you include in your study should be involved in the paper somehow. I say conceptual because you might be measuring anxiety one way and a different paper measures anxiety a different way, and that's fine. You have the conceptual variable of anxiety, just not the same measurement. And lastly, if the studies include more than 3 variables, be specific about which variables you're using for the paper. So when you're covering an article, you could say, you know, this article looks at variable 1, variable 2, variable 3, and variable 4. However, I'm only focusing on variables 2 to 4 because those are the only ones that are meaningful for my study. Secondly, you need to include information from critiques of the 2 papers in your proposal introduction. So, for example, you could say all these sentences. Evidence shows that my predictor or moderator variable is related to my outcome variable. Other evidence shows that the predictor and moderator might be related to each other, or other evidence shows my moderator is also related to my outcome. Therefore, I'm going to test the logical assumption that the direction strength of the relationship between my predictor and outcome depends on my moderator. All this is to say that your introduction is introducing previous literature on your topic and justifying your design. So you need to include information that tells us why you're testing this model the way that you are, and give some information and some justification for it. Those are example sentences about how you could say that, but just examples. There are obviously more ways. Lastly, you might find during this process that you need to change your study in some way. A reason that you might have to change your study is that your study can't be the exact same study as those you are critiquing. Of course, that research has already been done. So if you have a study design and an article you are reviewing has the exact same study design, you're going to need to change it. So you need to ask a slightly different question than the previous research. And furthermore, you need to change just more than how the method was carried out. So if you're proposing the exact same study as an article you're reviewing, but you say, well, instead of that sample, I'm going to do a college student population, that's not enough of a change. You need to give us a little bit more of a change to the method or the question or operationalizations. And here's some ways to do that. So let's say you find yourself stuck and your study is the exact same as one that you're critiquing. Here's some ways to change it. You could ask yourself, are there other variables that are of interest to you? So do they study variables 1 and 2, but you're interested in variable 3? And can you add that to the study? And also, are there different ways that the variables can be defined, and would that make the research more credible, or would that give you a different answer? So maybe they're defining depression. They're looking at how the authors were interested in how depression affects relationships. This is the example in the second bullet point right here. But they measure romantic relationships, and you might be interested in working relationships. So you could have the exact same study idea. So how does depression affect relationships? But you could say in the above paper they only measure romantic relationships, and I'm only interested in working relationships. That's fine. That's a different way to define a variable, as we see up here. And maybe it will make the research more credible, or maybe it will give you a different answer. Also, so remember, as you think about your articles and your critiques, look for things that support an idea you want to test. So, for example, if you want to test how depression affects working relationships, you could look for articles that provide evidence that a bunch of different things. Maybe depression affects personal relationships and how people communicate with each other. That would justify why you want to look at depression and working relationships. Or studies that show people have to have certain communication skills in the workplace, or people who work together often begin to form personal relationships. Thus, it is logical that depression would affect working relationships. All in all, I'm pretty much saying the same thing over and over again. Your introduction is just justifying the study you're proposing. So why are you using these three variables? Why are you interested in this? What does the literature have to say about it? And does the literature support you testing these three variables? And just a review of operational versus conceptual definitions. An operational definition is a detailed definition of how your construct or your variable is measured. So anxiety is a construct. It's not an operational definition, because anxiety is that's not a detailed definition of how your construct is measured. It's just anxiety. So their score on the anxiety survey is an operational definition of what anxiety is in your study. So anxiety could be the conceptual definition, and the operational definition is how they score on the anxiety survey. The survey itself is not an adequate definition. The survey is the measurement from their survey is the operational definition, not just the survey itself. And you need to describe what is in the survey and how the survey measures the construct. So you need to give me more detail than just the survey. So for example, the authors define anxiety as a score of 6 or higher on the social anxiety scale. Scale items included statements such as, I often feel uptight for no apparent reason, and I feel as if I can't breathe when I start to worry. So this is how you're defining anxiety, a score of 6 or higher on the social anxiety scale, and then giving examples of what is in the scale. All right, so that's a little bit about your final paper and how you can write your introduction and relate your papers to your final topic, or maybe change your study. So let's move on to assigning proposal assignment number 4. Proposal assignment number 4 is a presentation of your research proposal, and it's very brief. It's only a 3 to 5 minute summary of your research proposal. So don't panic and think it's a large study. It's only 3 to 5 minute presentation. So it's due next week, next lab 12. That's Wednesday, April 8th. And we would normally do these in class, which we obviously can't do now. So we're going to do them in over Zoom, in groups of 5 to 6 during our normal lab time, which is 3:30 to 5:30 on Wednesday, April 8th. Yes, Wednesday, April 8th. Stay tuned for who goes when, and it's worth 20 points. So I'm going to assign everyone groups of 5 to 6 and then assign everybody a time to log into Zoom and do their presentation. If you have a conflict from 3:30 to 5:30 on Wednesday, April 8th that you absolutely can't do, please let me know. I'll try to be as flexible as possible. It's difficult to schedule 28 people, so I assumed most people would be available during our normal lab times, but I understand if that's not possible during this crazy time. So, refer to the assignment sheet on Canvas for all the information I'm about to give you. You're basically creating a summary of your project in PowerPoint. You'll send the PowerPoint file to me, and you'll also turn in an electronic copy to Canvas. So let me show you the assignment sheet. It looks like this. Here's the assignment sheet. There's all the information I'm about to give you is all on this sheet, so please refer back to that for questions. All right, so I'm gonna get my laser pointer back. So slide number 1 just is the title and your name, and then you're gonna give some theory. So a few sentences introducing the problem you're investigating. What are you looking at? What's the problem? What are you trying to discover? Then you're going to list your hypotheses. So you're going to address the 3 potential effects of your proposed study. Again, each of the studies will have 2 main effects and the interaction that you can talk about. For each effect, you have to state the direction or the nature of the effect. So is it a positive relationship? Is it a negative relationship? Is one group higher than the other? And you must also describe the nature of your interaction. So some points to remember here. If you're conducting a correlational study, you must predict a significant interaction. And if you're conducting an experiment, you do not need to predict a significant interaction. So keep that in mind. So that's hypotheses, and we will go over how to form your hypotheses at the end of this presentation, or at the end of this slide. You'll also on slide 1 do your design. So one sentence describing the design with the design notation. So is it a 2x2 study? Is it a 2x3 study, for example? And then a second sentence should describe why you chose an experimental or a correlational design. So why is it an experiment, or why is it a correlational design? This, of course, is going to have to do with if you can randomly assign groups or not. If you can't randomly assign groups for any of your variables, it's going to be correlational. If you can, it's going to be experimental. So slide 2. Slide 2 will be a line graph of your predicted results. Your y-axis will not be labeled with values because you're using it to describe the pattern of predicted results and not the actual values. Your graph should be consistent with your hypotheses, and please use the sample as a guide for formatting. Again, we're going to go over this in really great detail in a couple slides, so hang with me here. And then slide 3 is implications. If you find support for your hypotheses, what does it mean for the real world? So the examples do not include this third slide due to space limitations, but your presentation must include it. So the examples on the second page of the assignment sheet does not have this implications slide, but your presentation must have it. So basically this slide means if you do find support for your hypotheses, what does that mean for the real world? Or rather, if you don't find support for them, what does that mean? So this is a 3 to 5 minute presentation, so I don't want anybody to panic about this. It's short and sweet and to the point, and your classmates will give feedback and ask questions as well. So here's an example presentation. It's on page 2 of the assignment sheet. This is from Dr. L. So as you see, we have the title, his name, theory, hypotheses, and design. So theory, information tends to be recalled better when it's initially presented in an organized manner. Recall is also improved when recall clues are available. The effect of cueing might depend on how the information is initially organized. So basically presenting the information, presenting the problem, and then you have the hypotheses. So there will be a main effect, such that, and then describe the main effect. There will be a main effect, describe it, and then there will be an interaction. So you have 3 potential effects on all of these, main effect 1, 2, and the interaction. All of those need to be described and the direction of them. So not just there will be a main effect and nothing else, you need to describe what that means. And then lastly, design. A 2 organization by 2 cueing mixed factorial design, and then rationale for your experimental design will go here too. And then this is slide 2 of the example presentation. This is your hypothesized results. So we don't actually have any numbers, so there's nothing on the y-axis here. We're just kind of guessing what's going to happen, and that's going to be according to our hypotheses. And again, I'm going to go over how to make this graph. So for grading proposal assignment 4, just some things to keep in mind. Please don't be nervous about speaking. If you're not comfortable with public presentations, you can just read directly from your slide. You're not going to get points marked off if you just read the slides word for word. They're also only 3 to 5 minutes, so please keep that in mind. Presentations need to be sent to me as well as uploaded to Canvas. They're going to get sent to me so that I can, on the Zoom meeting, just put your presentation up and we don't have to worry about everybody loading their presentation. You're going to get a 5-point deduction if you're absent when you're supposed to present. Of course, medical excuses or serious excuses will be accepted, and I'm going to work with everybody on what days and times they can present. Students who sign up for a proposal time and then don't show up will be penalized 5 points. If you don't present, there's supposed to be space here. If you don't present at all, you're going to get 0 points, but you still need to give the presentation to me because this presentation is a way for me to make sure that your final paper is going to be organized correctly. And if you don't make any form of presentation before the paper is turned in, the final paper, you'll get a penalty on your final paper. Again, I'm going to work with you. I know we're in a really weird time right now where we're not all in the same room, but if you don't work with me back and I never see your presentation, it will result in a penalty. So that's proposal assignment 4. Like I said, the assignment sheet is up, and there's also this example from Dr. L here. But what we're going to go over now is developing and graphing your hypotheses. So this is a big part of your proposal paper and of this presentation.